Swing state congressional Democrats held a meeting to discuss Joe Biden refusing to quit, and they literally cried. I can't blame them, I guess. They're going to lose their races. Cook Political Report is now showing 6 states moving from between a few 6 states. You've got some moving from toss-up to lean Republican, and some states that are likely Democrat moving to lean Democrat because the polling is so bad for Joe Biden. So we'll talk about that. Plus, we've got Jon Stewart, who came out and basically said Democrat primary be damned. They should have a convention where they should determine who will be the nominee. And this is what every Democrat and every young person has been complaining about for a long time. That the democratic process at the DNC, whatever you want to call it, is not actually democratic. They have super delegates who decide. And now Jon Stewart's advocacy is basically saying the political elites of the Democratic Party will get together and they will decide for you who your nominee will be. So we're going to talk about all of that, my friends. Before we get started, head over to mypillow.com. Shout out to Mike Lindell for sponsoring this show with MyPillow. You guys know Mike Lindell, and you know that MyPillow no longer has the support of these big box stores. So he's certainly been hit very hard by cancel culture. In order to counteract this, Mike's launching a $25 extravaganza, sponsoring shows like ours. Shout out. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just a problem solution, one product company. Since then, with the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products, some you may not even know about. To get the word out, they're having this $25 extravaganza 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. 6-pack towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels, you guessed it, $25. And for the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, any size and loft level, $25, even king size. The amazing offer won't last long. Go to mypillow.com. Use promo code TIM. Shout out to Mike Lindell once again. And there's also a phone number. It's 1-800-925-9096. And of course, we are going to be hanging out with Mike at the RNC. You don't want to miss it. Go to timcast.com. Click the banner up top. I don't know if there's any tickets left. It may be sold out, but at the RNC, July 18th, we will have a live show with you guys hanging out in the audience, live Q&A, all that stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mike Lindell will be there. Luke Rudkowski will be there. Hannah Claire Brimelow. Libby Emmons, of course, will be there. I will be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Also, if you go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to support our work directly, and you'll get access to the members-only uncensored show and call-in show, which will be coming up tonight at about 10 p.m. You don't want to miss it. It's good fun. And you as members, you are what sustain the show and make it all possible. So if you like the work that we do, head over to timcast.com, click that join us button. But don't forget to also smash the like button right now on YouTube. Subscribe to this channel. Share the show with all your friends. Joining us tonight to discuss this and so much more is Rep. Tim Burchett.
Thank you for having me, brother. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming. Do you want to give a little background on who you are, what you work on?
Yeah. I'm born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's the only place in America where people do not speak with an accent. I graduated from University of Tennessee. My mom and daddy were Depression-era people. Daddy fought in the Second World War. My mama flew an airplane during the Second World War. She taught school. Daddy fought the Japanese all the way across the Pacific, went to China after the war, fought the communists. Then he went to the University of Tennessee and fought the communists there for 40 years.
Wow.
He was Dean of Student Conduct. Then he left in a little after 2000. Both he and Mama are in heaven. They were beautiful, wonderful people, hardworking folks, and youngest of 3. Daddy was always looking after the underdog, and that's kind of been my political deal. I had a $1 million business. I lost it. Got accused of taking toxic waste. It was in the mulch business. The EPA cleared me after I'd closed down one day. And after they closed me down, lost everything, decided to run for the state legislature. I was the only person out of 99 House races that year to beat an incumbent in a primary.
Wow.
By about 2.5 percentage points. I knocked on over 6,000 doors. You'd take my shirt off, and I looked like a target, just red and a big white center. And every morning I'd wake up, and I would throw up, had a horrible taste of peppermint in my mouth. And my mama would fix me a turkey sandwich and a Sprite, and I would get out and go all day long and knock on doors again. And why I threw up was every morning with the taste of peppermint, because you licked stamps back then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you remember those days. You didn't have the meter and all that stuff. And And now your mailers really aren't as effective now with the internet and everything since Al Gore invented it. So
that's right, and email. But we do have a lot I definitely want to ask you about with the SAVE Act,
Sure.
illegal immigrants potentially voting. And I definitely want to ask you about the Help America Vote Verification story, which has been going on for a while. So it should be fun. Thank you for joining us. We've got Libby hanging out.
And I'm Libby Emmons. I'm hanging out. I'm Libby Emmons with the Post Millennial and Human Events. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here too. I'm Hannah Claire Brimla. I'm with SCNR.com. That's Scanner News. I'm so excited you're here because you are in charge of one of my favorite events in Congress, which is the 15-minute Christmas party.
that is my idea, yeah.
It's fantastic, and I think everyone should Google that right now.
We went 16 minutes this year because we couldn't fit it all in.
Yeah, I saw.
It stretched a little long last year, so we'll probably go back to 15.
Well, good. We got to send him back to work. I love that it was the first place Rep. Anna Paulina Luna's son had ever met Santa. It's just hilarious. Anyways, I'm glad to be
Baby
here.
Henry.
Let's get started.
All right.
Baby Henry. Love him.
Let's jump into the first story from the Post Millennial. Swing state congressional Democrats held meeting and cried over Biden staying in race, according to a report. Right before a Tuesday meeting with Democrats surrounding President Joe Biden's path forward in the upcoming 2024 election, a group of swing district Democrats gathered in a solemn meeting where there were, quote, actual tears, as Biden has not stopped in his campaigning and has vowed to run against Donald Trump in November. Some swing district Democrats in Congress are feeling the heat that would be an already close race down ballot, according to Axios. The group of battleground district Democrats is one of the last remaining groups in what has been reported to be a disintegrating effort on the Hill to get Biden to bow out of the race. It seems very strange right now. It's split. There are some establishment Democrat forces that want Biden to stay. There are many swing district forces and certain Democrats desperately trying to get him to leave. What we're seeing in the polling is that internally with this leak, Biden is way, way down. I'm wondering what you think Joe Biden should do. I'm curious. But more importantly, like, what's happening on the Hill with this? I mean, you're in Congress. What are you seeing?
Well, first of all, when Steve Cohen from Memphis walked out and they said, are y'all on the same page? And he said, we're not even on the same book. I thought that was that's typical Steve Cohen. I feel like politically, if we need to keep him in there, but for the betterment of the country, Chip Roy, 25th Amendment, take him out of office, because you figure Kim Jong-un, China, Putin, or whoever is doing their mischief. We've got over 100,000, as my daddy would say, red, but they're communist Chinese in this country that have come over our southern border, and we've got terrorists we know are here, terrorist cells that are here, and we have an inept Justice Department. And you combine all those things, and there could be a lot of mischief in 7 months. Now, the thought of Donald Trump being back in the White House probably will keep some of them under wraps, but still, that is a huge problem. And to think that if something goes down and this is the guy, the guy can't find the soft-serve ice cream machine in the White House, and that is who's in charge of the free world.
And he loves ice cream.
He loves ice cream.
That's disconcerting.
That's what he told me at the State of Union address.
Okay. Well, I'm not so I've seen a lot of people saying we want Biden to stay. We've made that joke like, hey, we love Joe Biden. But in reality, Kamala Harris is next in line, and she polls so poorly against Trump.
Yeah.
She's
awful. She's awful.
She hasn't done anything in her term of office to make herself either likable or seem more competent.
Except solving the border situation.
Oh, well, of course she did.
Yeah.
She's done a great job on that. If by solving we mean making everything worse.
And not visiting.
Bringing in 10 million.
I've spent more time at the border than she has, I can assure you.
Well, her office assured us it wasn't her job.
If Biden steps down, she's next in line.
She is next in line.
And she does way worse. So isn't it in our political interest to say no Joe Biden?
Well, I don't know. The polling is what you're seeing. It's just, there's that fly if you're going to get him.
He's on your head. Yeah, there you go.
I got the taser ready.
Well, don't tase the congressman.
Go tase the congressman. Go ahead. She's awful. There's no question. But the problem is we don't know how she will inspire. I think the middle America housewives, they hate her. I think we've talked about how the inner cities and the Hispanic folks are moving towards Trump. Trump's not going to win that vote, but he's making some huge headway into that. And I don't know that she would do that much better in those in those demographics, except for the in the black community. But in the Hispanic community, Trump just polls through the roof because of,
When he ate the taco bowl, that was
that's it.
Really,
I took a guy out to lunch last week who's a Hispanic fella, and he's very successful. He loves America, and he said he's here legally. And I said, "What is it you like about Trump?" I said, he goes, "He's a billionaire, Tim." And I said, "Well, what about that?" And he goes, "He can back it up. He's cocky, but he can back it up." And and that's the truth. He can back it up. And they're used to all that crazy corruption down in there and the cartels and what's going on. And they love America, and they see how great it could be, much better it could be, and they're going to work within the system. And I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the switch. But I don't think either one of them hold a candle against Trump.
You know what I think? There's a lot of things that divide left and right, Democrat, Republican, and there are tendencies and trends among each group. Typically, when I encounter Democrats, they tend to be people who don't know how to work. And I don't mean they don't know how to lift boxes or make burgers or sell insurance. I'm not saying that. I mean, they don't understand how to trade, market, generate value. Typically, they understand ask someone else. And whether that's welfare, which is the more insulting way to describe it, or they just apply for jobs somewhere else. They don't have the same mentality that you'll find more so in the country with conservatives, typically among conservatives, where they make value for themselves. And so this translates to Donald Trump never earned anything. His dad gave him the money. And it's just like, I don't care if his dad gave him $1 million or $10 million or $100 million. Increasing value. Trump gets $1 million loan from his dad to start a business. He surpassed his dad's wealth.
Yeah, it's a biblical story. The story about the father who gives his kids so much, and all of them, and one comes back and he just hid the money, and and he said, no, and then the one kid lost his butt, and the other guy rolled the dice and did something, and those were rewarded. So you're exactly right.
They look at Trump and they're like, he didn't earn it, and isn't that what Obama said? Like, you didn't build that? Was that one of his things?
That just turned my stomach. These people out here roll the dice. I know billionaires, legitimate billionaires that have started businesses from nothing. Pilot Oil started with a little gas station just over the line in Bristol, Virginia, from Bristol, Tennessee, Jim Haslam. The Royal Industries, Pete DeBusk. My buddy Teddy Phillips and his dad started Phillips and Jordan. They were in charge of the cleanup of the World Trade Center.
Wow.
And they're billionaires, literally. And yet they started with nothing. Teddy Phillips started with a pickaxe and a shovel cleaning a ditch. And literally, and so, but I would warn folks, though, I always remember when Clinton won the White House, and it came out that Clinton was a draft dodger. He evaded the Vietnam draft. He went to England, him and Hillary, he was a Rhodes Scholar for about 6 weeks or something. I don't know. I think he might have smoked too much weed over there and got kicked out. But there's that dadgum fly. And he, that's all right. And it came out he was a draft dodger, and he's running against George Bush Sr., who was, he was a Navy pilot, was shot down, picked up by a sub in the middle of the Pacific, and everybody was cocky, and we're going to win. I would warn people about Bill Clinton. Did you get him? I saw a spark.
I don't know, but I broke my taser.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
I hate that. Well, now we're going to suffer the injustice of that fly. But no, I just hope people aren't getting cocky and thinking, because it's not just the White House, the House and the Senate. If they get the House and the Senate, they'll impeach Trump day one. Mm-hmm. That will come forward, and Tlaib will be right up there.
And if you want to see any significant change on a policy level, I mean, definitely at the federal level, but also at the state level, you have to pay attention to what else is going on down.
Exactly. One thing COVID showed us, ma'am, was that, parents were looking over their kids' shoulders when they were at home on that computer thinking, what in the world are my kids, they're getting taught pornography, and then they go talk to their school boards and they're labeled domestic terrorists by our so-called Justice Department. So I think that shows it's imperative that we pay attention to these, I don't like to call them lower, they're really higher. The school board, your city councils, your
closer
county
proximity
commissions.
races.
Yes, ma'am. And that's where it really happens. The best thing you can come out of Washington is absolutely nothing. If we can just stop it, just stop this train wreck, America will figure out a way to solve the problems, and we overcome, our politicians. But unfortunately, it moves, and so. But we do need to pay attention to those local races.
I think that's sort of the argument that the Democrats are making in way of trying to get some kind of movement from the Biden campaign. They're saying you will cost us our down ticket races, when typically I think because he's the incumbent, they'd be like, no, we're just going to pay attention to that and we'll get everyone in that we're expecting to. I mean, I almost like that everyone, including the Republicans, are on their toes because I want them to have to earn every single one of their constituents' votes. I think it's easy to become complacent.
I feel like the liberals, I don't say Democrats, but the liberals understand the whole process a lot better. You know, we win the White House, we get Reagan or whatever, we get Trump, and we forget about everything else. And dadgummit, and then they just hand us our lunch. And the Democrats, you know, they're a whole lot like the communist Chinese with their 100-year plan. They have a better plan.
And I think we talked about this a little bit before the show. You mentioned it. One of the things I've always been concerned about is sort of where does this MAGA, America First movement that was sort of sparked under Trump go? I mean, should he be elected in November? He could only serve for 4 more years unless we really change our government.
There's a lot of people coming up behind him.
There are lots of talented people, but there's not a clear number one. Now, we have 4 more years to figure that out.
We don't need
but
a
it
clear
is
number
interesting.
one, you know?
But we need something, right? Because even the people who are in like
Bannon
America
talks about
First,
how there's not just one head of this movement, how it's a populist movement, and there's a lot of people involved.
which is great, but populist movements also can become shattered, right? I mean, populist positions are inherent so that they serve different interests. I think part of it is seeing that energy that exists right now doesn't die off in places that really needs it because there isn't someone coming up. You know, if there's someone strong coming out of Missouri or Tennessee, does Georgia have the same kind of energy?
Trump was gone for 2 years.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, what you really need are people in these local places taking charge and doing what they can. Like, look at Andrew Bailey in Missouri. He's really going hard and using all of the legal tools at his disposal to,
he's great.
You know, go after the people who are prosecuting Trump, to fight for the citizens of Missouri. I mean, he took it to the Supreme Court. You have a case right now in Tennessee. You know, Tennessee is going to be in the Supreme Court next year fighting for literally our children's health and welfare in the entire country. That's going to be huge. I think we need to see a lot more red state attorney generals standing up. I don't know that we necessarily need one guy or one lady to be in charge, or
I don't think it's one.
number
I just
one.
think
I think we need
if
all
there
of these
is-
people to actually stand up and put their, you know, money and their actions where their mouths are and get out there and do this fighting, because we see so much going on with the Biden administration and no one's willing to hold them to account. We were just talking before the show about how Anna Paulina Luna is really intent on holding Merrick Garland in inherent contempt. And I think that's very important to do. He flouted a subpoena. He's already jailed people for flouting subpoenas, you know, Bannon, Navarro. And it's time to hold these people accountable. That's really necessary. And without you know, our electeds doing that, where are we going to go?
Well, let's jump to the story from Fox News and get an update on this story. Rep. Luna planning to force vote to hold Garland in inherent contempt for refusal to hand over Biden her tapes. Republican Congresswoman said Sunday she expects the measure to pass. Now, she's not actually looking for the sergeant-at-arms to make the arrest, which I think should happen. But she wants to fine him $10,000 per day. But Rep. Burchett, you're there. What's going on?
Yeah, well, I was talking to Luna on the drive over, actually. She and I are me and her and her husband and baby Henry are pretty close. And we talk about this all the time. And I was at the press conference, first one, and we were going to have a press conference in the morning, but we think we've kind of overdone the press conference. I think Luna is under the impression that she just needs to move the bill forward. But you got to realize a lot in our leadership in those circles do not want her to do that. They feel like she's pulling something from, you know, the president and with the debate victory. But I keep saying, you know, this thing is a moving target, and it's always, and you need to add on. If we've got things that they've done wrong, we need to expose them. We need to bring them forward. That's what we're here for. We've got 22 legislative days left. And if we spend all our time naming post offices, that is an issue. And as I told the leadership, you know, I have a serious piece of legislation dealing with genetics and how the Chinese are stealing our genome literally and are developing biological entities to come after us. And, you know, I can't even get it to move. And I told our leadership, I said, you know, these dadgum post offices will name themselves. The one thing they have on us is we're not doing meaningful legislation. This is meaningful legislation. Let's pass it, send it over to Schumer. We ought to pass H.R. 2 every week. Just change it a little bit, send it back over to them, make it stronger. You know, border security, that's the issue. And that will be in the news every week.
Or at the very least, subpoenas,
100%. Yeah, bring them in, and let's enforce the law. Let's show America that this Justice Department is inept and corrupt.
I think my view is unfortunately a bit more dismal pertaining to what we're seeing with Congress. We'll get into the SAVE Act in a little bit. But even if, the SAVE Act, right, proving you're a citizen if you're going to vote, even if it passes the House, it doesn't go anywhere in the Senate because Democrats won't allow it to. And even if it goes to Biden, he vetoes it, doesn't go anywhere. Now we're looking at Merrick Garland, who has defied congressional authority. The DOJ is refusing to enforce the law as it's supposed to be, and nothing will be done about it. So while Steve Bannon is in prison and Peter Navarro is in prison for defying congressional authority, Republicans get nothing done. And it is always seemingly this way. I mean, probably most conservatives will tell you it's been this way for decades. But at least for the past decade, every single time an opportunity comes up, the Republicans say, no, slow down there. We better not. And then nothing happens. We're looking at Merrick Garland, who is engaged in a criminal activity, verifiably, easily provable. He defied congressional authority, a co-equal branch of the government, challenging and trying to hold the executive branch to account. And the leadership for the Republicans in Congress are like, I want to see the Sergeant at Arms arrest Merrick Garland. If Steve Bannon's going to be in jail, I'm not talking about revenge or retribution. I'm talking about
equal
equality
justice
under the law.
Well, and the language is so similar. You have Merrick Garland saying that he can't turn over the Her tapes because of executive privilege. Well, that's why Bannon couldn't give up his communication with Trump. It's the exact same thing. You have Garland saying, that he can't give up the tapes now because he can't turn it over because that would chill the ability of the Department of Justice to conduct investigations in the future. And you had Luna in her conference just before the break saying, if our subpoenas are toothless, then we have absolutely no power. So it's like the same language.
The J6 committee had tons of power.
Yeah.
Forcing people to testify and threatening them with prison over this.
And in prison, and now they're in prison. I mean, Navarro was in prison, Bannon's in prison, know.
But House Republicans' position is basically, we don't want this to be in the news cycle, and we would rather focus on whatever's going on with Biden.
That's exactly right. They do not want to take anything away from the debate and the debacle. And of course, with this, they're telling, and the spin, of course, is that, well, it's just going to prove what we already know, what we saw on the debate screen, that Biden is inept. But the point is the defiance of the law. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily what's on that. I think what it's going to show, I think the reason they're laying down on the train tracks, I think it's going to show just how inept he is, and that he's got either attorneys or advisors in there in the meeting telling him what to say. And also, I think some of the things could have been left out from the transcripts. That's what I think. There's a lot of that.
Didn't they already say that the transcripts were edited?
Redacted.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I mean, I think to a certain extent, proving what we already know.
And that's a lot, and that's illegal too.
That's illegal too.
Yeah, completely.
And
yes,
you
ma'am.
have also the FBI tampered with the Mar-a-Lago seized evidence.
Yeah, with the cover letters.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think to a certain
and the order
proving
of
what we already know is kind of key right now. I mean, all of the conservatives that I know were like, yes, there is something wrong with Biden. He seems different. He's not performing as well. But having it on stage for everyone to see seems to have had a really big effect on independent and more progressive voters. I mean, I think to a certain extent, the same thing is the case with seeing Merrick Garland face the same kind of consequences as Steve Bannon for allegedly committing, what is being told to us is a crime. If we have to answer this question of executive privilege, we should do that, or they should have to treat their players the same way they treat ours.
So in 2020, on May 29th, thousands of far leftists in D.C. ripped down the barricades around the White House, firebombed the White House grounds, torching a guard post, and set fire to St. John's Church. The photo, the aerial shot of D.C. shows smoke rising up around the White House.
It was shocking to watch that.
Shocking to watch, and the Republicans did nothing. Mm-hmm. So one of the challenges I see is
our former leadership. Yeah,
I can certainly understand this argument where it's like, well, no, hold on, we're winning politically because Biden's fumbling. Yeah, I'm sorry. I look at the media and I'm like, they're doing that on purpose. They intentionally did this. You're never going to convince me that in 2020, when Atlantic wrote, "Stay alive, Joe Biden. Democrats need little more from you than your corporeal presence." They wrote that. They were concerned in 2020 the man was going to die. He was campaigning from his basement. His health concerns have been around since before he got elected in 2020. Now, They're saying, oh, we had no idea this was happening. And the Republican leadership saying this is a good thing for us, going along exactly with the Democrats' plan and their allies in media with their plan. What I see is a lot of people are concerned that after the 2020 insurrection from the far left at the White House, where they forced the president into an emergency bunker and tried to burn down a historic church, Republicans did nothing. There was no Summer of Love Commission. The worst riots this country had seen in 5 decades. Oh, you got me. The worst riots we've seen in 5 decades, and nothing was done. Not a thing. I said, where's the 529 Commission? Why aren't Republicans creating a commission to force people to testify as to why all of these law enforcement across the country stood down and allowed this to happen? Why was the president forced into a bunker? Why isn't the mayor of D.C., Nancy Pelosi, or anyone else involved in this jurisdiction? Why are they not being called to answer these questions the way Don Jr. was, or Steve Bannon was, or Peter Navarro was? Why is Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon now in prison over this? And once again, the Republicans are like, we'll do nothing. For me, it's hard to say beyond the Democrats are bad. Why should people vote Republican down ticket? Now, Donald Trump is a bit more fierce, people like that. But congressional Republicans, they earn very, very little. They never get the job done. There's a small handful that we cheer for and that we respect. And when Rep. Luna says, this is the order of operations, right? We said, here's a subpoena. They denied it. We said, you're in contempt. They say, so what? We say criminal referral. They say, so what? We say inherent contempt. And now leadership is saying, nah, we don't want to do that. So nothing gets done. I have very little confidence that if the Republicans win anything in November, anything gets done. And you had a lot of prominent personalities in the midterm saying, even if Republicans win, they will do nothing. And while we have seen some stuff from a small handful, like I've mentioned, you know, we like what Luna's doing and Matt Gaetz as well. We are not seeing anything near the level of what Democrats did with the J6 committee. You had Raskin go before this committee and broadcast on television that I personally was advocating for people to go down on January 6th, which is a fabrication and outright lie. This guy's going on and lying about me. And I say to the Republicans, hey, can any of you do anything? And they say, no. So the challenge now is we hear this every time. In the midterms, why did Republicans barely win a majority? Well, unfortunately, the narrative is, and the reason why the Libertarian Party has so many right-leaning individuals is because even if Republicans win, they're not going to do it.
Same reason that in England and France that the conservatives are being thrown out in droves because they ran on it and they didn't produce. I can't argue with anything you said. Going back to Luna's original proposal, though, why we need to move forward with that. Americans want their pizzas in 30 minutes or less, and that's about our attention span. And we need to. This will not carry us to the convention. This will not carry us to the election. We need to keep piling on because there's so much out there, so much corruption, you know. And we just go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that's why you're in office, to take action.
Right. And here's what happens with these people. There's that stupid fly. Is it a fly or you think it's a drone?
CIA
We're
drone.
being bugged for real.
It's one of those green flies, so they're extra aggressive.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
I don't know. Anyway, we got horse
The green
flies.
ones are extra aggressive.
They'll come at you in the barn. They're just assigned to you once you walk in. But Republicans are gutless. Here's what they do. They go home. They throw the red meat out the Reagan Day or the Lincoln Day dinners or the MAGA dinners now. And they say, this is what we got to do. We got, Nancy Pelosi, she's making 60% return. I mean, there's people making 300% return on their stock. Go to the Wales site and look it up.
Unusual Wales.
Yeah. And she's just kind of right in the middle. And, I mean, there's Republicans that are doing that, and there's Democrats, and it's all just feeding at the trough. I manage my stockbroker manages my $6,000 fund that I have very well, and that's about it. But anyway, we continue down this path, and then we come back to D.C., and what do? We vote us down the river every dadgum time. You get a 3,000-page bill. You read to page 32. Oh, that takes care of all my projects back home, and I agrees a few lobbyists on K Street or whoever my wife and or girlfriend would work for, and the whole or my daughter works for this firm. We're going to take care of them. and then they quit. And that's why we're $32 trillion in debt. We had $1 trillion every 100 days, and we failed to address it. We keep kicking the can down the road. We say, when we get the power, we're going to do this. Well, guess what? We got the power now, and we're not following through.
Is it likely to pass that Merrick Garland will be fined?
I think it's a toss-up.
I feel like it only takes a handful of defectors.
I just take 2 or 3, and then and you got to look at the numbers too. If there's Thomas Massey, his lovely wife just passed away, and Brian Mass' daddy died, so those 2 are gone. I mean, they're not here, and it just, life happens. Somebody's going to get sick. Somebody's going to happen. So we're 3 or 4 people in the majority. Somebody forgets to come vote or something, or they're hung over in their office or whatever. I mean, there's 435 literally.
And Republicans have a majority by 4 seats or something.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
I mean, it's
So-
extremely narrow. I remember this was happening with the Mayorkas impeachment vote, that there were, 3 people who were adamantly against voting for the impeachment. And on the day of the first vote, a couple people who were in favor couldn't be there. I think maybe Andy Biggs, I can't remember who. So that the day that they could come back and vote, it changed things. Not that it went anywhere in the Senate, but it's such a narrow margin that really you need a lot of consensus to get things through. Does the Republican Party the Republicans in the House tend to be cooperative, or do you feel like there's a big division between them?
There's a lot of division, and Speaker Johnson has to take into consideration just every day. He could go to the floor and we could lose. He would lose the speakership, literally.
I mean, you famously got checked by Kevin McCarthy during the last speakership battle, so I always felt like there was some kind of contention there. But
I voted him out. I was the one that voted him out. I guess there was.
Yeah, but he really did I don't know what happened, but it looked like he kind of
We loved that so much.
Yeah, NPR was the ones who reported that, actually, the lady from NPR. She's a very nice little lady, and I know they're liberal, but she's always standing there with her little tape recorder and her mic, and I always want to make sure she gets, because when they talk to me, she was sort of off to the side, and and everybody knows her. And so I was talking to her, and then that happened. And I remember she said, "I've never seen that happen before." And I was like, what the heck?
And he denied it, right?
Yeah, because I fell right into her. And
he said, maybe we bumped elbows.
Well, he said we didn't. And then he said, well, it's a tight hall. And then maybe we touched elbows. And then, by then it was out of control, what was going on.
A lot of people were coming down on Matt Gaetz. I think what you guys did in voting against him was the right move. I love that
100% the right move.
And it burned $1 billion in IOUs for these lobbyists, these corporations, and that feels good.
Well, and also you got to remember, we had gone home a month before the big budget vote. So all we did was they came back a week to decide that. And, we should have been there a month working that out. We haven't passed a budget in over 30 years.
Wow.
And, just imagine your business, your church, your synagogue, your charity or whatever didn't have a budget. It's mind-boggling. And that's what we do. We pass these continued resolutions. And so what that does, it continues the bad policies before and loads up your junk. We have departments and projects and things that aren't even there anymore, Tim, and they still get funded. And where does that money go? Our Pentagon can't account for over $500 billion in assets. Never passed an audit. Yet what do we do to punish them? 20, 40 new billion dollars. I mean, the war pimps at the Pentagon are going to get theirs no matter what. And you look at what happened when I voted against every dollar going to Ukraine. And dadgum, when they gave them our missile defense system, what did we have to do? We had to, by rule, and we should have, replenished ours. And guess who owns stock in that? Members of both parties that served on that committee that knew about that ahead of time. And they ended up, magically, they just own stock in that company. It's just... It never stops. It never stops. And the American public, though, needs to get out. They need to get out, and they need to start getting involved in these primaries and putting people in there that believe in this country.
Let's jump to this next story. We got big news. Cook Political Report. Today, we're making 6 changes to our Electoral College ratings. Arizona, toss-up to lean Republican. Georgia, toss-up to lean Republican. Minnesota, likely Democrat to lean Democrat. Nebraska, second, likely Democrat to lean Democrat. New Hampshire is likely to lean Democrat, and Nevada is a toss-up to lean Republican. This, of course, following the disastrous debate and Joe Biden's performance. So here's your updated Choose 70 to Win Electoral College map. showing Republicans sitting at a likely 268 already. If this polling holds based on Joe Biden, Trump needs win only one more state. In fact, if he somehow managed to win one district in Maine or in Nebraska, which he wouldn't, then he wins. He gets 270. But Trump, it looks like he's doing well I believe he's doing well in Pennsylvania relative to Joe Biden. And then he's slightly up in Michigan and Wisconsin, but that's a little bit closer.
Wisconsin has always been, during this whole cycle, Wisconsin has been pro-Biden.
Mm-hmm. And now it's like 0.5 down.
Yeah.
The labor, I think you need to look at labor. The labor bosses hate that. All they want to do, they're like the old state legislature I served in Tennessee. A lot of those old guys, all they want to do is get through the next election. All they want to do is get through their retirement. But their members, I know a lot of Teamsters. Heck, the Teamsters have endorsed me in the past. When I was in the state legislature, you see them at church on Sunday. Yeah, they'll drink a little beer. You'll see them out hunting and fishing with you. They're with their wife and their kids, and they do not like that national scene. And I think you're going to see some of that peeling off in some of these states, like Michigan, like Wisconsin. Wisconsin, they make Harley Davidson. There's nothing more American. It used to be nothing more American than that. I've owned a few in my life, and so I think you're going to see a change in that. The head of the Teamsters is going to be speaking at the Republican National Convention. The Teamsters were a Republican. You remember the history of the Teamsters with Hoffa. They got Hoffa out of jail, and then they endorsed Nixon, and they were considered sort of the Republican Union, more or less. But you're seeing more and more of that, and Trump knows how to deal with them, brother. That's his deal.
Well, he's been working with unions for years in construction.
He's a tough-talking Yankee from New York.
Yeah, he knows exactly how to do that.
Yeah, he knows how to do it.
My bigger concern with Michigan and Pennsylvania is going to be the shadow campaign that we will likely see from the Democratic Party, that Republicans will be unable to stop. And even if they file a lawsuit, the Supreme Court will cower with their tails between their legs and refuse to take up their responsibility to answer these questions.
Just like they did last time.
Exactly.
They refused to take up the case of, what was it, Texas suing Pennsylvania?
The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So I'm concerned that with Michigan and Pennsylvania, maybe Wisconsin had issues as well. So these are the three states right now in the polling that Trump needs to win. Well, unfortunately, Pennsylvania is acting in violation of its own state constitution with universal mail-in voting. A lower court ruled, and the Supreme Court of the state said, no, it's fine. Clearly, it is in defiance of how their constitution operates. There was no answer by the Supreme Court as to whether or not this state was breaking its own rules as per the U.S. Constitution. The state legislature shall decide. So we had a bunch of states that were in dispute, and the governors decided we're going to do we're going to run these elections the way we want. Supreme Court refused to answer, and now we don't have these answers, and the next election is 4 months away. My concern is we will see tenfold what we saw last time. Already, Missouri has filed a lawsuit citing original jurisdiction to the Supreme Court over New York's prosecution and gagging of Donald Trump. That's the first one, 4 months out. I think it's very likely come October, we're going to have 6 or 7 more. I don't know. Probably way more than that. But I imagine by the time the election's happening, these all the courts are going to be buried in lawsuits, and they're going to refuse to answer them. So what do we do? Because, I think you mentioned earlier that Democrats know the process better or something to that effect.
Yeah. Well, they wrote the rules on a lot of these things.
Democrats are not playing. They're not playing the game as to the spirit of the game. They're playing the rules to win. So
100%.
They're, it's a little shady here and there, and everyone understands that's not what an election is, but we're in line with how it was written down, so it's allowed. That's democracy, they say. So what do we do come November if we can't get definitive answers, or worse, if these states are clearly in some kind of contention over the results, but they say Biden anyway?
I talked to our previous speaker about that, and they told me, we got, pat me on the head, basically, and told me, we got this, don't you worry about it. And the reality is we don't have it. The voter harvesting, for instance, that process to me is crooked as a dog's leg, but it's legal in some states. Not legal in Tennessee. We don't have to deal. We have the cleanest elections in the country, but it's legal in some states. If that's the rules, let's play them. Let's play them. Let's get in there. And politics is a contact sport, brother. It's not a game of touch. And we need to get aggressive on these things. We need to devote the money. And we did not devote the money to these these state Supreme Courts where people ran for those offices, not where they're appointed, but they ran for those offices. Oh, we don't want to dirty our hands. We've got to quit with this so-called compromise. This compromise is what gets us in trouble. Every time we're in the minority or in the majority, we always talk compromise. The Democrats didn't talk compromise when they were in the majority last time. Pelosi, that word never came out of her dadgum mouth.
No, they put people in prison.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing. And we've got to play hardball. We've got to play tough, and we don't. And we allow this thing to go on. We allow the money changers, the chambers of commerce, those crowds, the billionaire ruling class who do not care about us. They're always going to be on the tarmac greeting the president, no matter who the president is. Always remember that.
I think the problem, though, is Republicans are 5 steps behind every time. Yep. And so in 2020, this is fascinating because
they're playing chess, we're playing checkers.
That's right. And it's funny because the meme is Trump is playing chess and the Democrats are playing checkers. Well, certainly not the case. In 2020, we're looking at all the economic data. You had Moody's Analytics, for instance, saying the economics of Donald Trump suggest a victory in 2020 and a very slim possibility of a major victory, a huge margin. You take a look at the results. Bellwether counties in favor of Trump. You take a look at just the general predictive factors were very favorable for Trump, and he still lost. So the Republicans are thinking, we're doing X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C, and that's what gets you the presidency. And then for the first time ever, I think I could be wrong about this, but a president has never won Ohio and Florida but lost the election. There's something like that. And what was it? How many bellwether counties are there? 18 or whatever. Trump had almost all of them, 95%. Still lost. And there's a variety, and I think the reason is fairly obvious. Democrats weren't playing this game of let's convince people to vote for us. They were playing so we win when we get the most cards with names written on them. Let's play that game. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump's playing the game of I did good, vote for me. And so many people did. He got more votes than his previous election, and then a president who's gotten more votes second time has never lost. But Democrats went ballot harvesting with universal mail-in voting. Now Republicans are saying, hey, if they're doing this, we should too. And Democrats are doing something entirely different that we don't know about. Some suggest it's going to be mass illegal immigrant voting.
Well, that's a big part of it.
Trump suggests was already happening in 2016. Mm-hmm. But here's my question. If Democrats win, how do you actually check to see if there was illicit voting going on? You won't, because
there's no checks. There's no fail-safes at all.
SAVE Act will not pass the Senate, and again, you're asking me to. You're asking the Justice Department, which is, as I've said, crooked as a dog's leg, to do the right thing, and they're not going to do that. They're going to protect the swamp. They're going to protect the ruling class, because that's who put them in power, and that's how they know how to keep that in power. And that's why we have to put so many points on the board. All my dear evangelical Christians and sportsmen 20 million of us decided to stay home last election because of a mean tweet. And I've said we got to put so many points on the board they can't steal it from us. We have to. It has to be so overwhelming, Tim, that they cannot do that. But we've got to interject. We've got to make sure our base is there. You got him. You got him. I'd take him out. I don't think he's playing possum. If he comes back from that,
This fly has been terrorizing us for some time.
There you go. That's all guts that time. Good job. If he gets up from that, he deserves it.
I think I broke my taser.
Yeah. Sorry, dude.
Well, it served its purpose. Anyway, continue.
But anyway, we need to put enough points on the board so they can't steal it. We've got to energize folks. We've got to make sure that their votes count. And I want to give you an example, if that's okay. Can I give an example?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there was a bill, I can't remember, it was 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm a Christian. I'm not a very good one. I'm on the forgiven end, but I'm a born-again Christian. And so I called the head of the Southern Baptist Convention, and I went through the rigmarole. Finally found it was this guy down in Texas. It was a few years back. And there was a bill out that I thought put into place. I'm not a lawyer, but I heard enough talking of this chess game. It put it into place where it could set a precedent where, say, a preacher was saying something that they could label as hate speech. Well, they could go in, take their tax-exempt status, deadbolt. That's what I think they're up to eventually. Well, I called the head of Southern Baptist Convention, and I explained this to him. And I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, dude. I am remember big cowboy belt buckles? You know, they got a big piece of turquoise right in the center. I'm in the turquoise of that. I live in the Bible Belt. You know, there's probably 80 or 90 Baptist churches in my county and the surrounding area. So I called the head of the Southern Baptist Convention. I say, hey, this is going on. I did not ever hear from a single Baptist minister or anybody on this thing. And he said to me, Tim, that happened, you know, in like around November or December. And honestly, that's our busy time of the year, you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas. I said, preacher, I said, you're not going to be busy when the government comes and puts a deadbolt on that dadgum door, because that's where it's headed. You know, and I said, you guys, that's no excuse. And I lit up a bunch of preachers. All I did was make people mad. But at some point, we've got to realize we got to quit, you know, I don't want to be anybody call me out on Facebook. I don't want somebody at work. I don't care. We got to go in there. First Amendment's a great thing till you say something somebody doesn't like.
Yep.
You know, let them have it, man. Stand up. These people bully us. You know, I was in college in the 80s in the Reagan Revolution, and I had a psychology professor, and I would argue with her every day because she was always attacking Reagan. She's always, and I know her name, and I've Googled where she's at now, and she's at some do-gooder private school. But and I would walk out of there, and every day somebody would say, man, I'm really glad you took it to her, man. I really agree with you. I was like, dude, girl, why didn't you help me? You know, why didn't you jump in? Well, you know, I just didn't want to. I'm a little shy, you know. And that's the way we are, man. And good folks, honestly, they're too busy. They're raising their kids. They're taking them to soccer practice. They're taking them to football practice, whatever. They're cheerleading or whatever, and they're too busy to get involved. And that's why we lose these elections.
I want to jump to this website and talk about this story. Something that we and many others have been covering since around March. This is the Social Security Administration's Help America Vote verification system. And we have you here, Congressman, so I'm curious your thoughts on this. Are you familiar with HAVV, Help America Vote verification?
Yeah.
So we've tried this for a while. Choose a week, and this is going to show you people who have registered to vote who do not have an ID and the outcomes. In the week ending June 22nd, 2024, the state of Arizona had 47,928 attempted registrations with no ID. 11,374 did not have a match in the system. 13 were dead. 36,536 were found to be single matches and alive. Now, we don't know how this is happening or why it's happening or why the numbers are all different. What the SSA says is that this is only for when someone makes a registration attempt and has no ID, the DMV or the MVA, whatever you call it, can submit their name and the last four of their socials to see if they're in the system. How is it that Arizona had 11,374 attempts where the name and the SSN did not match? Something doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, 47,000 people in a single week? That's a lot of people to register to vote in a single week. Maybe that's normal. But you look at other states, California, 2,000. Why are we seeing such large numbers? Now, this has been going on for a long time. 211,419 in the United States with 35,982 having no match. Certainly, some of these people may have written down the wrong number or the wrong name or the name was spelled wrong.
Look at Tennessee.
Typed in wrong. Tennessee, 0.
Yeah, of course
At
it is.
0, 0, 0 across the board.
State is Trey Hargett's the guy's name. He does a great job. I served in the legislature.
Oh, West Virginia is also 0.
Missouri.
Virginia.
Take a look at this one from Missouri. This is, what do we pick? April 13th. Missouri has 46,938. Now, Texas, which also has insane numbers, 24,000 coming back with no match. And hold on, 4,492 are dead. Now, how did nearly 5,000 people who are dead submit registrations?
Just that sudden plague, you know?
There's been no answer for this.
No, there is.
And it's not even being brought up by members of Congress. I don't know what the answer or the solution is. Perhaps there needs to be, I think if you look at February 7th, let's see, maybe February 17th. I'll try and find this one because it's been a while since we covered this.
Yeah.
Missouri has 23,253 dead people attempted to register. The answer for this that we get is that they're doing voter roll cleanup. Totally fine. Okay, sure. But then how would you have 6,000 non-matches on your voter rolls? Doesn't seem to make sense. Texas denied this and said, we don't know what you're talking about. We did not register this many people. It's not happening. The SSA website for HAVV says it's only for when someone registers. So it's perhaps it's being misused. We're hearing a lot about the SAVE Act, illegal immigrants voting, but you'll notice it's a lot of these border states, Missouri,
Border states, 100%.
Arizona, 31,000 attempted registrations. What we know is that when someone comes to this country illegally, the Biden administration is granting them work visas really, really quickly, which grant them Social Security numbers. Let's say that these individuals don't have any idea how this country works, don't know what the laws are. So they go to file their paperwork for their work visa or for their work permit or whatever, and they get automatically registered based on their information, whether they wanted to or not. In several jurisdictions in Maryland, in California, New York attempted this, got shot down. D.C. does this. Non-citizens can vote. So what happens?
Allegedly local races only. But
That's what they say.
Allegedly,
But,
yeah.
New York, too.
Now here's the point.
That's not
They're going to have to register to vote, right?
correct.
And then when they go to vote for their local elections, they're given one ballot, right? And then they end up voting on everything.
That's correct.
If we do see non-citizens vote en masse and Democrats end up winning, there will be no audit. There will be no fact checking. And there will never be a way to figure out if this really happened or not.
In Bush v. Gore, they pre-filed lawsuits. What happened in the last election, President Trump's people, there are 5 law firms in the country that specialize in this, that are the king, you know, they're not
the go-tos.
They're not $45 an hour attorneys. They come in. And in Bush v. Gore, they had pre-filed lawsuits in a lot of these areas, Chicago areas we knew that there'd be stealing of elections in the past to keep it from happening, the hanging Chad, all that crazy nonsense. And this is what we've got to do this time. The Trump folks have to have these people under contract and ready to go. They did not the last time. They treated it like it was a talk show type thing. And, they wanted to fight it out on the television, and they needed to be fighting it out in the courts.
The Social Security Administration operates under the executive branch, or?
I do not know.
It's the Social Security Administration, so
Yeah,
aren't all the federal agencies under the executive branch?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I'd say, yeah.
Is there anything you can do? I wonder if there's a simple letter that can be sent saying, we're just trying to understand what these numbers are and represent. Perhaps you can give us some insight as to how these registrations come in. Is there something like that you could do?
Yeah, I could write a letter to any of them, but would they respond? And what do I have to hold over their head? Nothing.
Subpoena?
Yes, because subpoenas are very, very effective when they come
Yeah.
from Republicans.
Yeah.
I don't understand how this is so blatantly obvious that there is something wrong here. These numbers don't make sense. They say it's voter roll. In some instances, they say voter roll cleanup. So every week you're doing voter roll cleanup to the tune of 50,000 people.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And in some instances, we're looking at 20 to 30% don't match in the system. So let me just get this straight. So let's go to June 22nd, 2024, and we'll jump over to Arizona, which matters significantly for this race.
Yep.
You mean to tell me that 11,374 people on your voter rolls don't match with the Social Security Administration system? They don't reuse numbers. When you're naming numbers in the system, you come back as deceased or alive. So if this is true, we can assume 2 things, or one of 3 things. Arizona is registering illegal immigrants to vote, and 11,000 didn't have numbers. We can assume this is voter roll cleanup, and that Arizona somehow had 11,374 people on their voter rolls who don't have a Social Security number in the system. Mm-hmm. Or we can assume that, I don't know, I guess there's an error of some sort and the numbers are being inputted wrong.
I mean, if there's an error and it's happening this regularly, it's obviously a misuse of federal funding, and taxpayers should want an answer for that. Right? Like, either this system is broken and not working, so we're just spending money on something that is a waste, or there's something wrong. If there are 11,000 people that don't have matches, we have to ask ourselves why that is. I mean, you say this all the time, maybe every once in a while someone misenters their Social Security number. but
I don't know
11,000
about
times, probably not.
25% of registrants.
Right.
I think
would
we've
hope
known
not.
this has been broken for a long time. I mean, there's old jokes about, like dead people voting in Chicago. I mean, this is standard. This is like, a century old because of the way that the Democratic Party machines work.
But this is
and they're
why I
just
think
used
the
to being
SAVE Act-
completely unaccountable and not having to answer for it.
New York, 5,688 people attempted to register without an ID. 4,417 came back as non-match. So we're talking about 90% of those who attempted to register in New York have no match in the Social Security Administration database.
New York, that has had several million illegal immigrants enter there.
Yeah.
New York,
interesting,
also, there's
right?
there's no voter ID. In New York, what you do is you just sign your name, and your name supposedly has to match the signature book. But there's been times
that's
when
not
I've gone to because I used to live in New York and I used to live in Brooklyn, and before that I lived on the Lower East Side. And there was one time on the Lower East Side, this was the Obama election, I went to vote, and there were these two old women in front of me, and they were trying to vote, and they didn't have ID. And the poll workers were demanding that they show ID. And the women were like, "Oh, I didn't know we needed ID." And they were turned away. And I was like, "Actually, you guys, you don't need ID. There is a law. You can just sign your name. It just has to match in the book." But I've gone to vote in Brooklyn, and they can't find my name in the book all of a sudden. And I've been voting there. The only place I was ever registered to vote was in New York. So
They were supposed to, the way that rule is supposed to work is when they come in and don't have an ID and they sign, they use a paper ballot.
But you don't need ID in New York. All you need is your signature.
Yeah, well, I'm saying with the city, okay. But the way that was supposed to work was in states that did that in the past, if they didn't have an ID, they would sign up what they call a provisional ballot, and they'd put it off to the side, and then they would check their signature with the signatures they had downtown. And a lot of times they would never even have their ballots cast because if the vote was just if it was a statistical, there was no possibility of them, then they'd bring them out and they would count them later. So it was actually an honorable process, but it got abused, of course. And now with computers and our technology we have now, there's no shape, form, or fashion way they should be able to steal an election.
Also,
So
our poll workers particularly well trained.
I will tell you this: in Tennessee, our computers are not connected to downtown. They're not connected. I'm sorry. Our voter machines are not connected to the internet, any shape, form, or fashion.
Well, they shouldn't be.
They should not be.
Well, they've said that about many states, and then they've found that some of them are actually connected.
Yeah.
So the week ending June 1st, Pennsylvania had 104,250 registration attempts. 6,582 came back no match, 87 deceased. 87 deceased, I guess, kind of makes sense. And 97,563 had matches in the Social Security Administration database. That is a lot of people registering to vote. I just got to say, you know what I think is going to happen?
Scott Pressler's hard at work in Pennsylvania.
Sure. I think what's going to happen is Joe Biden and Democrats are going to win slightly, and they're going to say the polling was wrong. Wow. Or they swap out Joe Biden, and it's someone who narrowly wins, and there will never be an investigation into this.
No, there'll never be an investigation into it.
I think there won't be an investigation into it, probably even if Trump is elected. And I hate to be, black-pilled about it, but
I agree.
The reality is that it's just going to be something that is thrown aside. Oh, we won this election, so let's forget about it.
Let's forget about it.
It's
yeah.
really...
That's what I say. We have very short memories.
Yeah.
One of our pizzas in 30 minutes or less, and that's about our dadgum attention span.
That's why you had that meme from Aon McIntyre saying, "Lord, give me the Donald Trump that exists in the mind of delusional leftists."
Absolutely.
Because I'd love it if...
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, if Trump came in and was like, bring on Vivek, start ripping through these systems and getting rid of the corruption.
I was in the locker room this morning, and a Democrat was early, and he said, "Tim, I just hope y'all don't let Trump do what we think he's going to do." They think he's this Hitler-esque thing coming in. It's just the Constitution's there to protect us. It protects us all. The Bill of Rights. There is rules in place. This is not going to be that. It's going to be law and order.
There are Democrats that I view as paranoid schizophrenics in Congress who believe the psychobabble of the evil order givers. You've got Democrats who know they're lying and know they're evil. Nancy Pelosi, I think, is a despicable, evil human being. She makes money off of Congress. She lies about it every day. She knows she's full of it. She's vindictive, and she needs to just leave. She needs to get out. Then you've got Republicans that are complicit. They just allow it to happen. They sit
because
back.
they got their piece of the pie, dude.
They
and
get
they
their
do not care
stocks
about the
all the same.
country.
Yep.
All they care about is them getting reelected.
Completely agree. And so what you end up with is like what you said with this Democrat saying, don't let him do it. And it's when Donald Trump was in office and we had the worst riots we saw in 50 years and he did nothing. What were you hoping what were you scared he was going to do? Were you worried he was going to roll out tanks and start arresting people? Because he didn't do that when they were trying to burn down federal buildings. What do you think he's going to do now? He's going to get in. He's going to get some he's going to appoint some people who are marginally bad. We're all going to complain that he's got some good people, but then he hired some people who suck. Then we're going to get a marginally good second term, but it's not going to be enough to do away with the corruption that we've seen at the highest levels. And then what happens after 4 years?
And I think so much of this is a cultural problem, right? Every time that our institutions fail us and every time we sit here and talk about the fact that our politicians are making money off of being in Congress, I think the American people are the ones who suffer. They become less enchanted with the system.
I will tell you this time, I think he realizes it's so big that he has to tear down these agencies. Department of Education. There's not one bureaucrat in Washington and D.C. that has taught a kid how to read in Claiborne County in East Tennessee.
Well, they switched
Shut
the
it.
way that reading was taught too. I mean, they
Yeah,
switched it
well,
to like these ridiculous.
But my point
ways.
exactly because one size
the
does not fit
DOE,
all.
yeah, went for it.
You know, what works in Washington D.C. or Los Angeles sure as heck doesn't work in East Tennessee. And so you shut those departments down, you send the money to the states, you hold the states accountable. And then that's where voters will hold the people accountable is in their states. And then these bad states will fail, people will continue to leave, and they will continue to collapse. The same way with Department of Justice, any of those agencies, just you take them and you go to the bottom level. The Pentagon, everybody down to a 2-star general, out.
Have you asked, when this Democrat comes to you and says, don't let Trump do what we think he's going to do, have you asked any of these people? Because my response would be, you realize that y'all put Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon in prison for defying a subpoena.
Right.
And we won't even put Merrick Garland in prison for doing the same thing. Have you asked
We
yourself?
won't even slap his hand.
Have you looked in the mirror perhaps and asked yourself if you're the baddies?
Right.
Do they consider this?
When you brought this up, I was thinking of Rachel Maddow when she was like, they're going to lock us all up. And everyone's like, you mean
the way
the
you
thing
are?
you guys are already
Yeah,
doing?
that was really
You're saying that
You're
you
accusing
are
us of doing what you're already
Right.
doing. That's the constant thing that I hear. But
it's because they know they do it.
we got to remember when we get in power to act appropriately. I was in the state legislature for years in Tennessee, and the Democrats controlled everything. And then finally we took everything. And I can remember when I first got elected, one of the old House members says, boys, I was here when we took it over. I was here when the Democrats took it back, and they fired everybody. And I said, y'all remember how this is? And sure enough, we started that same old deal, and we start this compromise stuff. Again, compromises why we don't control the Panama Canal, while both ends of it are controlled by the Chinese, while we're $35 trillion in debt. Just go through the list of compromises that we've done. We need to start. The American public has given us a mandate if we are fortunate enough to win, as we should this time, unless we blow it. And we need to take full advantage of that because we are only going to have one more bite at this apple. In the history of the world, it always goes through oppression, revolution, some success, and then you figure you can vote yourself the largesse of the Treasury, and then you start all the way back around. It's never been where all we've done is delay it some, and we might have an opportunity to turn back that clock if we just had the guts to do it. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just going to move on. So if you want to
go, you're due.
We're going to jump to this next story from the Post-Millennial. Jon Stewart claims concern about Joe Biden's health is new and urgent information, suggests replacing him at convention. There are no participation trophies in endgame democracy. And once again, to shout out to Batya Unger Sargon, who said, we are at the stage a coup against your duly elected nominee point of saving democracy. Jon Stewart on his show advocated for effectively overturning the primaries, the will of the actual voters for who the Democrat nominee would be, holding an open convention where political elites would instead decide who the nominee should be. There are a lot of countries that have processes like this. North Korea comes to mind. China comes to mind. And that is what Democrats and people like Jon Stewart are proposing. The people should not choose who is going to be in charge. Only the elites will. And this is the process we are now beginning to see unfold. And I wonder if it was the intended condition that Joe Biden would stay in as long as possible. They'd intentionally put him on a debate that wasn't through the Commission on Presidential Debates so they could control it. Joe Biden, who everybody knew was suffering mentally, would now be in full display for the world to see. And now they act like this is new information, which it's absolutely not.
Well, that
because
was the
4
shocking
years
thing.
ago, they knew Joe Biden was dying. And that's what they feared. Now they're acting surprised so they can use this as justification to stop the democratic process for the Democratic Party.
I mean, even before he was elected, Joe Biden had a stroke. I mean, he has had health concerns in the past that during 2020 were sort of swept under the rug. And it's interesting that they say it's new. I largely believe that's because Democrats believe their own propaganda. I mean, on one hand, they know it's not true. On the other hand, they're like, no, Karine Jean-Pierre says everything's fine. And so does Rachel Maddow. And so we should continue forward. And I think this is the long-term solution for them, which is to continue to sort of pretend and deny, it's the Biden White House that covered this up from us, not us, the mainstream media. It's that shift away to continue to be able to say, we didn't know, this is brand new information, when actually they've known all along. It's a willful ignorance to remain in power.
But during 2020, we saw this clearly, and everyone in media saw this because Biden refused to leave the basement. He gave speeches and held campaign rallies where he spoke to Jeeps that were 6 feet apart, that were socially distanced, and it was impossible to tell if there was even anybody in the Jeeps in the first place. And the Post-Millennial has certainly been reporting on this for 4 years. We've been reporting on, the way he interacts with Easter bunnies, which is very peculiar, the way he's constantly sniffing children, the way he's stumbling around and really mostly concerned with getting ice cream, the way that he garbles his words. I mean, these have been memes. So everyone has been aware of this. Jon Stewart has been aware of this. Now, he took some time off. He only came back for The Daily Show on Monday nights because they were floundering. They still don't have a permanent host. So he's out there doing this. But I did think that his commentary was entirely disingenuous, but about how nobody, essentially how he was saying that nobody knew about Biden's problems and his mental incapacity, which was clear for everyone. People were saying elder abuse years ago, right? That was very clear. But the most disingenuous part is how the Democrats who are screaming about saving democracy. I don't know if any of you guys saw Becky Pringle, the president of the National Education Association, which is like the largest union in the country.
Tirade.
And she was freaking out the other day, saying, we need to win all the things. We need to win all the things. And she was very vocal about that, saying that this was all for our democracy. But the people who are screaming the loudest about saving the democracy are the ones who are first in line to disenfranchise American voters of the man that they voted for. 14 million people already voted for Biden in this primary season. This is the person the Democrats put out there to be their guy. They put him out there in 2020. They've been saying this whole time they're going to put him out there again. They're putting him out there now. They get the voters to vote for him, right? They pull the one guy who was running in New Hampshire. They make sure that he can't do anything. They make sure that RFK can't do anything. They clear the table so that Biden can do his tap dance routine, only to discover that he can't even move his feet. So that's the most disingenuous part, is that the people who are screaming for democracy are the ones who are more and more willing to tell the voters that they can't have that they want, and to be elitists, to be not,
I think
bottom up and middle out, but clearly top down authoritarians.
I think the next 20 years are going to be particularly insane. And it's because I think millennials are fractured to an extreme degree. And Gen Z, I don't know. Gen Z is more interesting. I'm not sure how they're aligning. They seem to be relatively fractured as well. But it does seem like a lot of Gen Z are actually a bit more based. The next 20 years are going to be interesting because regardless of birthing trends among the American population, I think there's a lot of millennials who are very, very angry with boomers and the silent generation and their unwillingness to do the job. The thing about millennial far leftists is that they want the system burnt to the ground. And I mean that from my perspective. Their view, or as they would espouse it, is some nonsense about communist utopia or whatever, socialism or something. Millennials that are more on the right are angry that Republicans are doing nothing to bring justice and equality under the law. Steve Bannon being a really great example. You don't got to like the guy. There's no arguments to be made there. The argument is he defied Congress, he goes to prison. Merrick Garland defies Congress, he doesn't. People are pissed off. So the next wave of individuals who begin to run for Congress and get power are going to show up in D.C. with figurative sledgehammers. The person who comes after Trump or the person who comes after that person is going to be someone with fire in their belly, whether it's left or right. And it is going to be substantially more dramatic. Donald Trump says, because you'd be in jail, everybody laughs. He then gets elected and he says, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Because Trump is, I believe he's a late boomer, right?
Yeah.
He is a boomer. And the mentality of many of these individuals is, no, we don't want to go with that. So we're not going to. And the reason is boomers in the 80s and 90s, Democrats and Republicans were mostly aligned on everything. The overlap between the two parties was substantial. Today, there's no overlap at all. It's hyperpolarization. And so you've got these older boomers who get their news from MSNBC and CNN and even Fox News to a certain extent. And they live in this world of, oh, it's not that bad. We're fine. And then millennials are much more concerned about the direction this country is going and angry that despite the fact we can see with our own eyes, the Democrats are breaking the law in every step of the way, violating the Constitution every step of the way. Republicans aren't doing anything about it. I imagine the next wave of Republicans in the next 4 to 10 years are going to show up in D.C. and it is going to be, I don't know, bedlam. I imagine whoever comes after Donald Trump as president for the Republican side is going to be a massive populist libertarian, and the system will be, if not Trump, you get someone like Vivek, and I don't even know if Vivek is a smart guy. He's a calm guy. He's a rational guy. He's a logical guy. But I don't see the rage in Vivek that I see in the Trump movement, the populist movement, and not even necessarily Trump, but these younger guys, and not necessarily so much younger, but I'm talking like dudes that are in their 30s, people who are in their late 30s, maybe some Zennials, Gen Xers, who are asking why it is that we are watching for 4 years. Why are there people still being held in prison over January 6th who have not been charged with the crime? And that's true.
Yeah.
Why
are
there?
DOJ keeps arresting people.
Why is it that even if the Supreme Court says you can't forgive the loans, Biden does it anyway? Why is it when the Supreme Court says you can't use the obstruction charge, they do it anyway? Why is it that when people walk into a building with no barricades and open doors and the police take selfies with them, they get locked up and we see nothing? I fear that there are too many people right now who are paying attention to how the system is working, and they're thinking to themselves, there is no system. When Rep. Luna says Merrick Garland, according to how we handle this, should be held in contempt, the DOJ says, cry about it. What does that say to people like me, the people who watch this show, the people who watch Crowder, the people who watch the news every day and are watching in real time? The government doesn't function. The government will not hold anyone accountable. Democrats do literally anything they want. And Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro are in prison unjustly. And many of these J6ers, you want to make an argument about the people who actually smashed things and fought cops, make the argument. I'm talking about the people who did not know what was going on, who are on the other side of the building or showed up an hour later, who have been sitting in jail for over a year. And when the Supreme Court says you can't charge them with this, the DOJ says we're going to do it anyway.
Well, it's not just that either. You have the J6ers who are they're from across the country and they're all seeing their trials in Washington, D.C., right? That's something that happened. Attorney Maria Medvin, I don't know if you guys know who she is. She's a really interesting person. She had been representing a J6er and she tried to get the case moved and it was denied. And she was telling me that not even that many people had applied to have their cases moved. Well, the DOJ is being sued for wrongful death, right? The whoever it is, the police or whoever, being sued for the wrongful death of Ashley Babbitt. Ashley Babbitt, her hometown is in Southern California. I think San Diego. I don't know for sure.
I was 100 feet away from her. I could hear the shots in my head.
How horrifying. The Department of Justice petitioned to have her case moved to D.C. and it was granted. Why? Why was her case moved to D.C.? That doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like you see
because the jury there will lock you up
exactly.
regardless of the evidence.
Exactly. And you see the Department of Justice has this hugely long arm. They're very out of control. And it does seem like nobody's really doing anything about that except for, a couple of attorneys generals who are really trying.
She's from San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego.
I think this is one of the questions on the table, right? With the DOJ right now, I think a lot of people are sort of on the defensive. I think all of anyone accused of anything related to January 6th is kind of battling the best they can. They're using a lot of resources to try and keep themselves out of jail. They're resisting taking plea deals that are completely skewed against them, and trying not to have to go to trial in front of judges and juries that are politically biased against them. On the other hand, I think Donald Trump is an example of this. I think there are a lot of organizations that can see the effect of an overreaching DOJ and know that there's sort of no way forward until a new government is installed, like when there's a turnover in both Congress, Senate, and in the presidency, because Joe Biden's not going to do anything to stop it, and the Senate's not going to help any sort of movement from the House to stop it, and it really does feel like a period of limbo as everyone waits and figures out. Now, that's not very motivating to the American public, right? It's very doomsday. It's very depressing to think that this is a system that's there and you can't do anything. We've got 6 more months left, and maybe even possibly more than that if it's not dismantled from within. But I do think that the effect of the only silver lining for January 6th for me was really that a lot of American people talk about what happened and they say this isn't right, that the way you're being treated is wrong. It makes them more conscious of the effect. I don't like that there are people who are incarcerated and suffering because of that, but all of these little things that happened, COVID, the lockdowns, January 6th, I think they reminded people that the system is really fragile and it only takes a minority force to really control and restrict your life.
Yeah. Steve Bannon said that Trump's the moderate.
Mm-hmm, he's right.
And what comes next is going to be way more. So that's why I'm talking about like the next generation after Trump. Trump is the moderate. He hired Bolton, for heaven's sake. He's looking at this as a compromise, what he can get done, and he got betrayed by some of the people that he thought he could trust. He could not trust. I'm just wondering, who Bannon is talking about. Who's the next person in line? Because I have to imagine, based on the people that I know, I'm just imagining. What would Jack Posobiec do if he was president? It ain't going to look like Trump. It's going to look like tenfold Trump.
Yeah, it would be much more conservative.
Oh, Jack would go in, straighten his tie, and then just say, execute Schedule F, and then just start firing everybody. He would get the job done. I'm looking at people like him. I'm thinking about what I would do, and it's nowhere near what Trump is doing. Trump is taking the light road.
Yeah. But Trump has always been the deal maker, right?
He has been, but I think he understands who betrayed him the last time, and he understands which systems. And I think he understands that these departments have to be dismantled, that he cannot continue down this same path with the same people and get any better results. So that's where I'm thinking because I know the people in Congress that have his ear, and they think like you do, and they think like I do, Tim, and I believe that they have his ear this time, and there's not people he's not going to get to know. He already knows these people, and he's been working with them in the past. And so I hope he does.
Do you think that means that he'll take more strategic positions on things like immigration? Like, we're hearing a lot about the border wall, but actually you have to do stuff like reform chain migration. Yeah. You have to end birthright citizenship. I don't know if you have an opinion on birthright citizenship.
Well, he's got all that stuff in there. I mean, did you see that? You saw the policy platform.
He doesn't mention birthright citizenship on the policy platform. No, I mean, there's other stuff.
Securing the border, and he's talked about
there is more to securing the border.
Also, if somebody makes $6,000 a year in these countries, they'll stay down there. A lot of them will. I had a meeting with some folks out of Guatemala today. I've been working with them and businesses to bring American business ideas down there. Our State Department was big on bringing drag shows and other things to other countries.
Helping them.
Capitalism is the key to that deal. And if we can, and we can use our capitalism, our business know-how, get those businesses there operating, and they can sell their products, or we can take their products and refine them as we've been working on, and then sell them to the world. I think that will keep the people in those countries, and we'll get back to the old system. The system before under Reagan was you come up, you get your papers, your card, you go do your thing. You work seasonal, migratory workers is what they called them, and then they would go back home to Mexico, Guatemala, whatever, Honduras, and that process would repeat itself. And it was a economic need. We needed people picking in the fields and things like that. And we broke the system when we allowed them to stay and get benefits.
And I think also incentivizing them to stay. I mean, that's the problem with birthright citizenship to me.
Absolutely.
Let's jump to this story from the Post Millennial. Huffington Post says campaign should use AI deepfakes to cover up for increasingly frail and confused Joe Biden. The opinion title, It's Time for the Biden Campaign to Embrace AI. The left-wing Huffington Post published an opinion piece on Wednesday recommending that Joe Biden's campaign embrace AI to smooth out his gaffes. Institute for Education senior advisor Kaivan Shroff wrote in the op-ed titled It's Time for the Biden Campaign to Embrace AI that Joe Biden is old and has had a lifelong stutter. He acknowledged in a fiery rally following his debate performance, I might not walk as easily or talk as smoothly as I used to. These AI-enhanced videos could ensure that the public does not make decisions about the future of our democracy based on an inconveniently timed cough, stray stutter, or healthy but hobbled walk. Welcome to your nightmare, ladies and gentlemen.
We think you should doctor your video so you seem better.
Yeah,
Trick the
fiery.
American people.
They called that fiery. That's fiery. I don't know. That's pretty chilling, if you ask me. It was pretty pitiful.
Yeah.
If he'd just not come off that debate, and that's the first time you'd ever seen him, you'd think, wow, this guy's down the tubes.
And the funny thing is, there are a lot
They're
of
accusing
people,
us of doing what they said was being done to Biden.
Well, you've got
Again.
a lot of people in this country that don't care and don't pay attention. So when MSNBC says this version of Biden is the best version of Biden, he is sharp, they kept saying it, they believed it. And then when Joe Biden publicly debates and displays exactly what all of us who pay attention know, Jon Stewart says new and shocking information that the voters should be allowed to consider. These people are evil.
But what it really means is that if these people are, saying that AI Biden should be the Biden that's out there, that's visible, what it really means is that they don't have any respect for the office of the presidency, and that they also don't think that there should be necessarily a presidency. No. They think more important than the man himself is the team around him.
They want you to be ruled by the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, whoever that is, who is not the man we are seeing.
They are effectively saying, let the puppet be your
that's correct.
Where the spotlight is, and the deep state will run the show.
My favorite social media comment was, I don't care if Joe Biden's in a coma, I'm going to vote for him. That was on a clip of one of the debates. I mean, if you really felt that way, then you obviously don't believe that the presidency is the person themselves. It's the structure around them. And that's why I think they get so nervous about it.
25-year-old kid with a man bun who's got his ear in the White House right now.
But can I real quick, someone out there, I'm sure you can find this. Can someone find a clip? Here's what we need to see. A clip from Whoopi Goldberg from the Trump administration years where she says something like he's embarrassing us on the world stage, blah, blah, blah. And then put that next to her saying, I don't care if he pooped his pants. I have poopy days too.
Yeah, that was crazy and so disgusting.
Well, and what was the criticism of Trump all the time? He's not presidential enough. He doesn't speak with decorum. He's doing whatever. And now you're excusing just complete decay of a human being. And that's a little bit harsh for Biden. But, I don't think this is who the American people want to be represented by. And I think that's why it's so hard for the Democrats to admit that they have sold you a false bill of goods when they could have been honest with their voters. I really think when Joe Biden sort of pretended he was going to be a first-term president, that there weren't enough people to hold him accountable to that. He was sort of saying, I'll be the last of this guard, and then we'll usher in a new age. And instead he was like, and now that I'm here, I'm going to stay in the White House for as long as possible, and you're going to have to force me out. And that... This is something they could have seen coming, and they just don't have anyone on their bench to pull up. So they're caught between these very difficult positions. Go ahead.
You have to have a congressman that would do it or a senator. And if you'll notice, they vote lockstep with Biden. Mm-hmm. The terrible policies, the terrible shape, the $600 more a month that average Americans having to pay out of pocket just to live, the gas prices, the fentanyl problem, the border. They voted 100% lockstep, and every dadgum one of them did, and now that's why none of them are stepping forward to kind of hint and, hey, pull me in there.
Oh, and they defend him, right? I mean, every single one
because
of them.
They have to. They voted for his stupid policies. They vote lockstep, and Republicans don't do that.
Even Dean Phillips, when he launched his challenge campaign as a Democrat, eventually was like, well, I'm going to drop out, but I'm going to endorse Biden, even though I told you he was too old, and even though I told you we needed new leadership, and even though I told you he wasn't unifying the country, even though I told you he was divisive. I've changed my mind. I'm going to back Joe Biden. I've known him for a long time. He's a good man. I mean, this is not a good look for them at all. But I also think that this just tells you that they don't really know where to go. They are scrambling. I don't think that there is an overarching plan for them. Maybe there was, and someone, probably Biden, was like, I don't like your plan anymore.
The Democrats use the carrot and the stick a lot more effective than we do. Dean Phillips, he's a good friend of mine, but he is, that's what they're under, and they know when they come back, they're going to be taken to the woodshed.
Right. I mean, I thought it was a huge risk for him to go out there, and I think
He took. I mean, it cost him his political career. He's not in it anymore.
I wish he was out there saying right now, see, I told you guys. I mean, the problem is he's endorsed Biden, so he can't really go back on his word. It's a difficult position to be in, but I think it does mean that there's sort of nowhere to go. Do you think that the American people believe Joe Biden will leave the race, or do you think that they expect it to be a Trump-Biden face-off again in November?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think there's, every day you say, I keep thinking that it's going to go to the convention and those super delegates that you talked about, Tim. When Hillary and Bernie were fighting each other, I believe Hillary did not have the popular vote, but she had the super delegates, that corrupt system that they helped create that's been in place for a while. And so, they've clearly stacked the deck in their favor, and I think the American public sees a lot of that now, and I think they're just openly disgusted with the whole thing.
Sometimes I think that the mainstream media wants it to go to convention because of the ratings.
Oh, it'll be great. It'll be great entertainment. I'm going to go if I go to the Republican convention, I'm going to go for a day or something. Why do I? There's.
We kind of know what's going to happen.
Well, it's an election year. There's 4 people down there that can vote for me, and I think I've got 3 of them. So I'm going to stay home and knock on doors.
Yeah.
That's in some of my counties. So I think that's more effective use of my time. And there used to be the floor fights, and there's not going to be one of the Republican Party. It's going to be a kumbaya thing. And the only thing you really want to watch is the riots outside.
Yeah.
The radicals will be there.
That's the interesting part.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Although it does seem that this year most of the radicals are going to be at the DNC, and they're just going to be from the further left.
It'll be Chicago.
Party.
It'll be like Chicago in 68, I believe.
And they
it's
oppose Biden.
It's a really bad look that they're going to be in Chicago, and that they're going to have this level of protesters with all of the Gaza-Israel stuff. They're going to be freaking out over that.
Yep.
You even had AOC when she was talking to reporters. What was it, yesterday?
Yesterday.
She was talking to reporters about how she backs Biden no matter what. And she was saying, we're going to get this ceasefire. And it's like she represents that faction.
Yeah. Cortez even said, I talked to the president this weekend. We're going to work on all this stuff. And,
right.
And I just don't see that unified front. Again, though, if we don't put enough points on the board, they're going to steal it from us.
That's right.
When the governors came out of that meeting with Biden, they all were using the exact same language. He's had our back. We have hit
right. And then today we're
He's
riding
in
with
it
Biden.
to win it.
He's in it to win it. Right. The same slogan over and over again. They just got their talking points. But I just wonder, how
That's what
many
they
promises
do.
were made? What did he promise?
Where was the governor of California and all that?
Oh, he's not weighing in on this conversation.
No, I think I think that's where they're going to go.
Are there races in your area that you're interested in that you think people should pay more attention to?
Of course, the local or state races are always important. Tennessee is, we've got the majority Republican, of course, but I think we need to worry about the local races, the school boards, the county commissions, those type of things.
What about the judges? Like the recent judge was she a chancery judge who refused to release
Nashville?
That's Nashville. That's out of my
that's out of your area, but it's certainly a local race.
That's
a
a
good
disgrace.
lesson, right?
That's a disgrace.
Yeah,
and elections
really
do have consequences, but your big towns like Nashville and Memphis, they've gone pretty much Democrat, and they're mostly liberal.
Well, Knoxville's had some serious problems.
Knoxville has a Democrat. We have an openly Marxist member of city council, and it's because people don't get out and vote. And these churches and civic organizations, they're afraid to get involved. We don't want to dirty our hands until it's all over.
Have you seen... Sorry, go ahead.
I met a city councilman from Charlestown, West Virginia, and it's an overwhelmingly conservative city.
Right.
And county. Well, I should say it's the county, I believe, is like 55% Trump supporting. It is a bit mixed because you get a lot of people from D.C. who come out to get away from the laws that they've voted for.
Yeah.
But I asked them, you guys have a Latin mass right there in your city, and they did this big procession. How is it that your city council voted to enshrine Pride Month in a jurisdiction that's majority Trump supporting, Republican, conservative? And he said, because they won't vote.
12% maybe if we're lucky in Knoxville. They won't. 12% of the population votes.
We saw, was it Brandon Herrera in Texas? Lost by a couple hundred votes. And it was something like 10% of people turned out. In a district of 775,000 people, they got, like 30,000 or something like that, or 67,000. I don't know what the number was. Something like that. Very, very low. And so I'm like, I found out that Charlestown voted at the city council to enshrine Pride Month. And I'm like, in
Why?
Charlestown?
Yeah.
I'm like, you just had like 3,000 people do a Latin mass procession through the city. And they're like, they won't vote. Okay, they don't vote.
Here's the deal. They do not vote. Bottom line. Bottom line. People will not vote, and they're lazy, and that's part of the reason we're losing our country.
All that is required for evil to triumph is that good men do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Good people do nothing, because we're progressive here, right?
But I think that's part of the cultural aspect of this, which is that when people felt like civic engagement voting was worth it, was not just like worth it because it's not a corrupt system, but also worth it because it's sort of a moral duty. It's something you do for your neighbors, your country, your family. They treated it differently because it's always sort of been there and it happens in the background. And I'm so busy and social media or whatever, you're always distracted by something. I think that sense of I need to participate has gone away. That civic responsibility isn't there.
I agree. And, they don't teach it in schools. And honestly, as an elected official, it's a whole lot easier when a lot of people don't vote, because when you target voters, which you do, you don't see a lot of dead people get letters. You don't see a lot of folks in the other party get your letters. You target that, and that's the way it is. And they, as long as the power brokers are in power, they don't care.
Yeah, I think that's true. Do you think that the next 4 years will shift the direction the country's moving, or do you think it'll always sort of be a vying back and forth?
I think it'll be vying back and forth, but the extremes of the pendulum movement will be that much more extreme. You look at, I think where we've lost the real battle, we've lost it in our churches because they're afraid, honestly, as Christians, we're afraid to preach the gospel anymore, and we've lost it in public education. We've turned our colleges and universities over to Marxist, my friend, and she is my friend. I don't agree with her, but AOC. Cortez, publicly educated, and she has a degree, I believe it's in economics, and she's what I would call a Marxist. And she's a friendly Marxist, but dadgum, she's a Marxist and publicly educated, and that's where it's going. These colleges and universities, you go into public schools, and here's how it happens. The legislators, they elect these people, and then they appoint these presidents of these colleges and universities. Go check their, in Tennessee anyway, it's public record. Check their voter registration. If they do vote, I guarantee, if your college or university says we celebrate diversity, ask them how many Republicans are in their sociology department.
Yeah,
and because it's not there, and then we're getting that, and these kids are indoctrinated, and the hippies and protesters that wanted to burn our country down in the 60s and 70s are now college deans, and some of them are retiring, but the product of that, and they haven't done it overnight. They've had they've done it over a period of time, and we've been asleep at the switch. They will take this country without firing a shot. I looked at that picture of, the press secretary, the president's press secretary, and all those kids. Mm-hmm. There's not a, there's a bunch of man buns in there and a bunch of, they, them.
Oh, in that shot of like the
and I said this
is
is public education right here, and then I get these calls from people. You're saying bad stuff about public education? Yeah, I am, because we've turned it over to them.
It's not just public though. I mean, it's
everything.
The private schools. It's really all of the schools.
Yeah, but
are like
the
that.
government has no say in the private schools,
right,
other than just the credentials or whatever, the standards.
Do you think that the universities should stop receiving federal funds, the ones that are turning out basically, basket weaving Marxists?
100%. 100%. I think they ought to have a career base. They ought to have a career. A kid's got 8 years of school that fixes your coffee. I don't go to Starbucks. I don't give them money. I don't go to movies. I don't give my money to Hollywood either, but I'm an old fogey. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah.
I mean, there are institutions like Hillsdale that doesn't take federal funding.
That's right, and God bless them.
They can exist out there. It's just that there's sort of this dependency
once you take that needle, you're an addict.
Yeah.
What do you think of I think it was Oklahoma that recently implemented a curriculum rule that Christianity needed to be taught in schools, not indoctrinated, but the Bible needed to be part of the education.
I don't have a problem with that if that's what the local standards are. Mm-hmm. There's a reason Ronald Reagan introduced prayer in schools in Salt Lake City, because the Mormons, they vote conservative and they pray.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? 1 like equals 1. Let's go, Brandon. And head over to timcast.com, click join us, because we're going to have that members-only call-in show where you as members get to watch and or call in to talk to us and our guest. Join the show. Also, as members, you're basically keeping us alive, and we could use your support. And we like doing what we do, and it's all thanks to you. But for now, we'll read your Super Chats. We got Charles II of Spain, who says, Tim, Barry Lyndon is a far superior movie to The Patriot. Not familiar. Is anybody familiar with that movie?
No.
Never heard of it.
What's it called?
Barry Lyndon?
I guess we're all going to have to watch something this weekend.
You've seen The Patriot with Mel Gibson, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, it's amazing.
The Baptist Church got a bus. Of course I've seen that.
Oh, it looks
Get
like a
fired up.
1776 movie.
Oh, yeah.
I
Is it?
want to get up and fight after that's over with. It's like Rocky, the first time I saw Rocky.
Yeah.
You want to be a boxer.
Yeah, and I wanted to be a patriot.
Yeah, I just feel like you want to put an American flag on your porch immediately.
I wanted to go after some redcoats with a hatchet.
All right. Marty Smith Fansu says, woohoo, Rep Burchett, excellent man. Right up there with Gates and MTG, Eli Crane. I donate to him even though I'm in California. Thanks for all you do, sir.
God bless you. Those are great people. My buddy Eli Crane, I would encourage people, and Matt Gates. They're spending, I think McCarthy's spending something like $900,000 a month on him, or a week. I forget what it's a substantial amount.
Right
of money.
now?
To challenge the races?
Against Gates. Eli Crane, they've got a guy in there against him. Eli Crane is a certified war hero. He is a very quiet, gentle soul that, I tell people these guys are people like my dad, who was in the Second World War. They're exceptional people that are called on to do very bad things. And he did. He answered his country's call and did those. Eli Crane is a hero. And it's a disgrace that our former speaker is mounting an attack against that guy. I can tell you, if it goes down again on January 6th, I was the very last House member to leave the House floor on January 6th. It was before Eli and all those guys. But I swear, if Eli had been there, I'd probably still be in there with him.
Do you think McCarthy will succeed in getting Gates?
No. I've been to that district. I go down there every year. It turns out the condo complex I stay in, Matt used to represent them, and I didn't know it. And the lady is a big, my wife and daughter and I go down there, and they have a Republican club. And now every year when I go down, I speak to them, and it works out for me. I hate putting on my tie during,
Your vacation?
But my wife and daughter love the lady who runs the condo down there. So
I think we're lucky here in our district. We got Riley Moore coming in.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Very exciting.
It's going to be great.
And he's a good dude.
Yeah.
He's a good dude. So I'm excited to see what he can get done in Congress.
You guys can be a skateboard coalition because you skateboard too, as we learned.
I do. I've got a skateboard.
Can you kickflip?
No, I can. No.
Okay,
I'm too old. I'm too old anymore. I'm 59, dude.
Riley did a kickflip to fakie on the bank.
Wow.
And he's going to be probably the only member of Congress who can land a kickflip. So I'm very excited for that.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to have some representation finally.
Absolutely.
I'll get you one of my bamboo skateboards when I get the mixture down right. And
right on.
You'll dig it.
All right, let's read some more. The Emperor's Champion says there's only 2 ways Democrats can get rid of Biden: the 25th Amendment and, I can't read that next one. He says Hillary Clinton.
Oh, ouch.
But just infer what that means. She's going to run, and then she wins. And that's all that means. There's nothing else that means. Mm-hmm. And we'll read more Super Chats now. Anyway, moving on. Kyle H. says, hey, Tim, I'm a photographer, and my dad passed away. And I'm trying to put together a project in his honor to unite people. Is there somewhere I can send the link? I don't know. There's no real good way to do it. Normally, we just tell people to message Ian.
You could still do that.
Yeah, Ian on Twitter. On X, sorry, dead named X.
Yeah.
You hit up Ian. Ian's always a good contact. I don't know where he is right now.
But we never really know where he is.
We never do know where he is. All right. Kelton Heckman says, Rep Burchett, you are the best representative I have ever had. Thank you for actually protecting our Tennessee values. Love for Powell, Tennessee.
All right, Powell. Well, when you're from Powell, you say Powell, P-A-L. I was knocking on doors in Powell last Saturday, and they're wonderful people.
Oh, right on. I mentioned this before the show, too. I said, we're going to get a lot of messages. They're going to be like, you're the best. We're from your district. We love you.
That's cool.
And sure enough, Bam says, MAGA for Biden. Questioning him is questioning our democracy. He is the people's chosen candidate. He does not need to speak. His track record speaks for him better than he ever could.
I think that's true.
100%.
Phil Luciano says, longtime Spotify listener, coffee buyer, participant in Fit by November Club, and future Cast Brew franchisee owner here. A good friend that moved to Martinsburg, West Virginia to get away from D.C. recently passed away. And there's another one here. Let me see. I can see the one. Where's your second super chat? I don't see it. Can't finish it. Maybe we'll try and find it. All right. Ronan Jack says, here is my tithing to the Temple of Tim Pool. Ah, yes. Thank you. Tithing is deeply important. Perhaps you could become a member at timcast.com.
That's 10%. Tithing's 10%.
Yeah. Doesn't
Lord only
tithe
gets
reference
10%. The government gets a lot more.
Yeah. Tyler George says, I was unsubscribed from your channel. Yep.
Wow.
I have so many people who message me and they'll be like, I have searched it 3 different times and nothing comes up. Or they'll be like, I was subscribed for years and suddenly it's not there.
We've had a lot of messages from people frequently where they say, I watch every episode and never miss an episode, and I was unsubscribed and the video wasn't appearing for me.
There was one episode, and I wish I could remember the guest, but I wasn't on the show, and I searched it on YouTube like 3 different times, tried all the combinations of words, and ultimately it had to go out to whoever had tweeted out the link, because that was the only way I could find it. It was very, very weird. This was like a year ago.
Yep. That's YouTube. They'd love it if we would just go away, but it doesn't work. Sorry. That's why it's important y'all become members, though. My morning show is shadow banned on Google.
Really?
You cannot. Yeah. So if you go to google.com and then search for youtube.com/timcastnews, it will not come up. If you take the title of any of those videos I've made, 'cause I do 4 per day, and you Google search for it, the video will not come up. Google has, for whatever reason, Timcast IRL, I don't think has that problem anymore. We'll check. But my morning show, which is Timcast News, is shadow banned on Google. Yeah, the Culture War podcast is not.
Haven't figured out that's you yet. It's got a different name.
Well, they shadow banned all of my channels and then unshadow banned those 2. But Timcast News is still in the shadow ban. Yeah, I used to get, and I think the reason is, my videos would get 300,000 views on each video. Now they do like 150 to 200, depending on the day. Sometimes it could be a little bit less. Sometimes it could be a little bit more. I got a video from last week that's like 500,000. One's got 300. But I used to consistently hit around 300K. And then they shadow banned me. And they need to remove, I don't know, rabble rousers, I guess. They don't like me. When Trump won the last time, they cried, and it's on video, and you can watch the video of them crying, the Google executives or their staffers. So when you get a channel like mine, that's not necessarily just saying, yay, yay, MAGA, MAGA, but I'm saying, hey, the media lied there. Trump's actually not that bad. He didn't do that. They're like, uh-oh, a reasonable argument that could actually convince people as to why Joe Biden's bad. Don't let him get his videos out. That's the game they play. All right, Sean Waters says, hey, Tim, I recently joined the culture war with my song Effigy, inspired by Michael Knowles being burned in effigy last year. If you like it, I'm trying to raise funds for my next project on Give, Send, Go under Sean Waters. That's Give, Send, Go, Sean Waters. Best of luck, good sir. Make music. We got a bunch of really cool stuff going on with the Boonies HQ. And talking to the city of Martinsburg about their skate park project. And we're going to be assisting in fundraising to the best of our abilities to get a big park. I told them, they said they had an idea for like a small concrete park. And I told the guy, I said, I don't want to step on anybody's toes here. But if I reached out to some of my guys in the industry and we put together a substantial sum of money to make a world-class action sports facility, is that something you guys could accommodate? And would you want that? And he was like, yeah, that'd be fantastic. And I'm like, if you build a local skate park in Martinsburg, the community will enjoy the skate park, and that's a good thing. If you double your investment into the skate park, you will build a world-class facility, and you'll have people travel from all over the world to try and see this amazing park where they can, they can skate or scoot or bike or blade or whatever it is they do. And he seems pretty excited about it. So hopefully they figure that out. And then I'm going to reach out to as many industry contacts as I can. And I'm hoping we can match whatever it is they put towards it through various companies. So we're probably looking at like $1 million fundraise, but then we could have a big world-class facility in Martinsburg and put it on the map for skateboarding. It'd be fantastic.
That would be cool.
Yeah, it'd be super cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm very interested. We'll see what happens. We'll see. They're still trying to secure land. There's concern. The locals are concerned that the current place they're going to put it would result in flooding. So they got to find somewhere else. But we love Martinsburg. All right, we'll grab some more super chats. Ben Lowry says, if illegals are going to swing this election in the swing states, why do they want to dump Biden? If they control him, why rock the boat? Because he's too old and he won't last in office. Right. He's not going to make it. Yeah. So having to swap him out at the last minute is a headache.
And you don't know who's coming next. Like, part of it is staying ahead and saying, well, we know who's going to be there, and we know that they'll do the things we want them to do. I actually think that's the biggest problem they have with Biden. Health is definitely up there, but, I think really he didn't want to be a one-term president like they had hoped he would. And that's been a bigger obstacle to overcome.
All right. Noah Bodie says, rumor is Trump may announce VP at his rally right now. Did that happen?
No.
That
I could see.
No. He did. There was a rumor going around, but then everyone kind of realized that if Trump was actually going to announce his VP on a random Tuesday night around 9:00, there would have been a little more warning and fanfare.
I think, he understands that. I think he'll do it at the convention.
He did challenge Biden to a round of 18 holes in golf, so that's kind of funny.
So, what really grinds my gears? During Occupy Wall Street, the organizers pulled off this stunt where they spread a rumor that Radiohead was going to play at the park. And thousands of people showed up. They did. And it worked. It worked. Thousands of people showed up. And then the organizers used them and put them in the process of, people's mic and all this stuff. And I remember talking to someone and she's like, this young woman, I said, hey, have you been here before? And she's like, no. And then I'm like, you going to stick around? And she's like, well, I heard Radiohead was going to play. And I'm like, they're not playing. That's silly. And she's like, oh, really? And I was like, are you going to leave now? And she goes, no. Like, because now they're embarrassed. Like, I'm here because I believe in it. So at the Libertarian Convention, someone was spreading a rumor that Trump was going to sing with Afro Man. And I was just like, no, stop. That's not happening. We're like, why? That's a rumor going. No, there's no rumor because the Secret Service would have shut down the venue a week in advance or 2 days in advance. It's not happening. And they're like, I'm just saying there's a rumor. I'm like, no, stop. Just stop. You're not pulling this one off. Okay. No one's falling for it.
I don't think Trump needs to do that. I don't think that's it. He has a lot of jokes. He's definitely a performer, but I don't see him becoming musical anytime soon.
Like, if you come to me and I know you're lying to try and pull some garbage like that, you are excised from my address book. You are not coming in this space. I am not dealing with that. To come to me and be like, hey, Trump's going to sing. And I'm like, you're out. Never again. I don't want to deal with people like you. This is why I absolutely despise Jon Stewart right now. I give him respect for his work over 9/11, the first responders. He did a lot for those guys. I respect that. But to lie on his show as it's just absolutely insane. New information, and we should shut down the primary. Wow. These people are despicable evil. In their minds, the will of the people be damned because they're smarter than you, so they should be the ones in charge. Instead of trying to build a robust culture and community of smart people who can actually navigate crises and build new technologies and improve things, they go the route of poison their minds, poison their bodies, and get the dumb people to do what you want because you're better than they are, and that's disgusting.
I'm going to start a rumor this Friday that you're performing with Radiohead here. We'll see how many people show up for poker.
Yeah. All right. What do we have? We'll grab some more super chats. Richard Devine says, can someone please go into details on what the F is the 2025 project?
Okay.
So
go for it.
I have not read it. I do not intend to read it. It's not Trump's deal. You have people that are putting this out, and you have some AI people talking about it, and I just don't. It's not a reality. It's some independent group of people that have put something out, and of solutions ways to get to where, to solve things, and that's it. And if they're radical, maybe they are. If they're wrong, some of them probably are, but
I think
it's not a thing.
I think it's just the thing they're trying to distract with, right?
I agree. It is a complete. It's like what you said about the liars.
Are trying to distract with it.
100%.
But I mean, I read like maybe 100 or 200 pages into it, And most of it is really just about how to run the government by, bringing power back to where it should have power, taking it away from the federal agencies. And it was put together by the Heritage Foundation. And there's a lot of really interesting, good thinkers who have written in it, especially I was looking at the education section and some other stuff. But it's not Trump's platform. It's really just exactly, it's a not-for-profit putting together some ideas that they hope that the
Could
candidate
potentially
would read
be
and
considered.
check out.
They're treating
That's-
it like
that's
it's a
what it is.
contract that Trump has
certainly
signed.
not.
He's, promised
to be
Barron
fair,
if
like,
it doesn't follow through. Like, it's getting so hysterical.
But if you look at it, like I remember in 2020 when the teachers union, the NEA, donated, $30,000 or something like that to the Biden campaign and put together their playbook for COVID. And they put together their playbook of how they wanted COVID and schools and teachers and students to operate. They gave it to the campaign, and we reported on it at the time, like this is what the NEA gave the campaign. But then what happened in the winter, once Biden was in office, they implemented almost all of those things. So that's when you want, sure, report on what the Project 2025 says, but it's not a diktat,
Yeah, it's not. I really do think it's this, it came up a couple months ago. There was a whole bunch of articles, Project 2025. Honestly, I think they're mad because it's got kind of a cool title. It sounds kind of interesting.
What are not-for-profit think tanks supposed to do?
Right. This is literally why they exist. But also then it comes back up after Biden does so poorly in the debate, and they're trying desperately to spin against Republicans, and they won't, the hurricane's apparently not enough to redirect attention.
Have you heard about Joe Biden's Project Baby Killer? I'm really concerned about that one.
Yeah.
Well,
A nonprofit wrote about how they want to expand abortion. And, that's all Biden. Biden is behind all of it, and he wants to just go around personally performing abortions.
What was
I heard
amazing,
that.
too, was how recently the Biden administration came out opposing sex changes for minors, medical sex changes for minors, surgical. Meanwhile, they're suing the state of Tennessee for their law that says you can't, sex change kids.
This is why I want to know what
what's
promises
the
were made
truth?
from the Biden
What's the
administration.
truth?
Right?
Are you opposed or are you suing Tennessee?
They're in a weak position, and so they're about to promise everything and talk out of every side of their mouth, and it's just going to be fascinating to see the fallout.
And we have Biden on video saying, parents, affirm your kids.
Yep.
All right. Epic Win says, hi, Tim. Been watching since you're guest host on Sargon's channel. I work at a gas station in Georgia. Prices just jumped up 40 cents. Trump landslide. Speaking of Sargon, Carl Benjamin is going to be here this week. We're very excited. Carl's a good friend. And this Friday on the Culture War, oh boy, we are going to be debating with the Lotus Eaters post-liberalism. So it's going to be very friendly and hilarious, but very argumentative. So I'm very excited for this. Phil debating classical liberalism versus post-liberalism is going to be a blast. And Carl will also be here, so we're very excited for that.
And that's Phil's last appearance for a little while, I think, because he's about to go off on tour.
Yeah, the, what is it, Destroy All Enemies tour? Is that what it's
Destroy
called?
All Enemies tour.
Destroy All Enemies, wow.
I know nothing
Opening
about
for
metal
Mudvayne
music.
and Megadeth.
Yeah. I know nothing about...
That's big. Megadeth?
It's
Wow.
huge. I only know about it because he sits across the table from me so often. I've learned so much from him.
Yeah, well,
I
very
don't know
excited
if you like
for
metal music, or Representative.
It's Tim. And I like both kinds of music, country and Western.
Yeah.
All right. The only two, huh? All right. Eldritchinator says trying to change horses at this juncture is dishonest of the Democrats and tacit admission that they lied. Democrats voted and argued for this man, defended him, and placed American lives in his skeletal hands. This is what really bothers me. There's no conspiracy. This is a conspiracy fact. Democrats have known Joe Biden is ill going back to 2020 when they wrote about it. Now they're acting like it's a cover up because they are lying. So when you see all the different journalists go, we had no idea. We know for a fact they're lying. This is an obvious coordinated effort by the media and Democrats to manipulate the American people in plain view. Boy, are they getting desperate. Because we could, you know what I think? I think we had a real strong deep state after World War II. I think the liberal economic order was formed. Powerful interests in the United States and European countries came together, and they said, we're going to run this thing like a well-oiled machine. JFK ends up getting killed because he defies the machine, and they got things under wraps. The media is going to do what we say. They're going to report the stories we want. Mockingbird, Paperclip, all of these things, you name it, we control this thing. And then they had kids, and those kids inherited many of these systems. And they saw what their parents did with the liberal economic order, and they said, we're going to do this job too. And then they had kids. And those kids never saw what their grandparents did. have a general understanding of geopolitics, and are now trying to inherit the deep state and have no idea what they're doing.
No historical knowledge.
None. And so they say that wealth lasts 3 generations. You get a guy who comes from nothing. He works really, really hard. He builds a business. He becomes wealthy. He shows his son. His son watches him work. His son learns how to run the business, but not build a business on his own. That kid maintains the business and then has a son, and that son never sees someone build a business, doesn't see how it's done, has no idea how to run it, inherits it, and it falls apart, and wealth lasts 3 generations. But this is true for anything. So I genuinely believe that what we're seeing now with like the media's overt lies and all that, the deep state is on their 3rd generation and they don't know how to make the machine work.
It's like Kafka. It's really very Kafka-esque. Or if you read Václav Havel, the playwright who became president of the Czech Republic at the time, he had this amazing play called The Memorandum. And it just shows it's like these levels and levels of bureaucracy, and no one knows who's in charge and no one knows what they're doing. They just know that what they have to do is protect themselves against anyone who might look at them askance, you know?
I'll give a quick shout out to Fitcast IRL, because I said this a few months ago, like everybody should get in shape before November. If you don't know what you can do, if you feel like there's nothing you can do, maybe voter registration stuff isn't up your alley, you don't know how to advocate, maybe you're too busy, you can get in shape. That's something literally anybody can do. And improving yourself, improving your life is I mean, let's just put it simply. If you took every Democrat and every Republican, and you got every Republican to be fit as a fiddle, you are going to have a general net positive effect across the board for everyone who agrees with you. Everyone, you're going to live longer. You're going to have more kids. You're going to feel better. You're going to be sharper, smarter, stronger. And that will confer massive benefits to your economic opportunities, to your access, to the way people treat you. And if that is the only thing everybody did, over a long enough period of time, a fit, well-oiled group of people, figuratively well-oiled, I don't know if that's what you're into, is going to operate better, is going to be more successful, and that's what it's all about. So get those crunches, get those sit-ups, get those burpees in, and by November, if you're hoping that you can make a difference, but you don't know how to do it, you can always start with improving yourself. All right, Soapy Enigma says, Jamcast is hosting another non-woke game jam on the 19th. There will be cash prizes. Wow. Contact Duke to Die For on Discord to get the lowdown. That sounds fun. QA Lifts says, is it OA? It's OA Lifts. Since working out is considered right-wing, I started a fitness channel, OA Lifts. I guess that's why they say might makes right. Haha. Yep, the media has actually reported numerous times that working out makes you right-wing.
Yeah, that's so wild.
Maybe it's because you worked hard to accomplish something. You feel good that you did the work to accomplish the thing, and it makes you understand meritocracy. And you're like, now I get it. Or maybe it's that people who have a tendency to try to improve themselves probably already have some kind of rightward lean to them. All right, let's grab some more super chats. Mr. Grizzly Bear says, if Donald Trump wins this election, the leftist riots will make the summer of love look like an actual summer of love. That's a good one. And I agree. Logan Culver says, Nixon won Ohio and Florida but lost in 1960. Ah, okay. It's something like that, right? I think I'm wrong on that one. That's why I said I wasn't sure. But yeah. Oh, wait, no. Hold on a minute. He lost in 1960. That's when...
Lost to Kennedy.
Yeah, that's when those votes from Hawaii...
Is it Hawaii?
Well, Hawaii had non-certified votes that were sent to Congress through an alternate slate of electors that Nixon decided he would count those instead as vice president. And apparently that was illegal. That's crazy. Kennedy, he was an illegitimate president, I guess, because the argument is he sent a false slate of electors from Hawaii.
Right. Yeah, we covered that a while back. Yeah, nobody really cares that happened anymore.
And that's where the mob loaded the voter toll
in Chicago. So yeah, that's another one of the, also what they say. All right, let's grab some more super chats. Alex Thatcher says, hoping to get a call out for my books ad infinitum, Meat Market and Eggshell. All about the individual fighting to create a positive future. Shadow banned, and now my Amazon publish account is suspended. This escalated with a $1 sale on digital copy for Independence Day. Wow. That's what they do, man. They silence and suppress and shadow ban because they don't want this narrative to get out. It's, you know, look, we consistently get one of the largest live audiences on YouTube, and it's in spite of what YouTube is doing. You look at some of these other channels, and you look at the views that we get, and it's kind of curious how you'll see a channel on YouTube that organically will generate 2-3 million subscribers, but they'll get maybe 10 or 20,000 views in a video. We do a show, we get 300 to 500 on YouTube or more. The channel gets shadow banned. People can't find the videos. Our subscriber growth slows down. The reality is most people are not subscribing, but they choose to watch the show because they know about it. If YouTube had their way, they would shadow ban us and make it so that nobody watched ever again. But you know, they can't stop. They can't stop people from turning their TV on and just finding the show and wanting to watch it. They try. We get messages from people saying, I can't find the episode. How do I find it? That is a problem for us, but they can only do it so much because people still choose to seek the episode out. If we were reliant only on the algorithm, we probably would have ceased to exist a long time ago. So shout out to everybody who loves watching the show. Thank you for allowing us to do the work we do. All right, I got one more from Raymond G. MAGA Stanley Jr. He says, Tim, shout out to Cassandra. For the most part, we get introduced to based America First politicians and leaders. Didn't know Tim, but now I appreciate him. Well, there you go. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? 1 like equals 1. Let's go, Brandon. Head over to timcast.com, click join us to become a member and support our work directly, and you will get to watch that uncensored show. This one is going to be a bit rough for all of you. I recommend watching it. It is very not family friendly, but it's very important. And let's just say there's a law that woke activists are opposing that seeks to protect children, and it's strange. So that'll be over at timcast.com in a few minutes. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Don't forget to, once again, share the show with all of your friends. Rep. Burchett, is there anything you want to shout out?
I just thank you, brother. I get a lot of inquiries about your show, and I appreciate y'all putting the truth out there because you're over the target, and they know it, and that's why they come at you with the shadow banning and all the other things, the attacks on your folks. And I hope y'all stay the course because we are. And I ask people, I say, please pray for our country. One quick story: on the night Bill Clinton won, I remember looking across the table at my daddy. We worked the polls that day. I was on the house, in the state house, and I'd won, obviously. And I remember my dad said he was going to pray. It was just me and him in our little house there on Bennington Drive in West Knoxville. And he said, Lord, please don't let us lose our country. And I looked across the table at a Marine Corps World War II combat veteran whose heart was breaking because we were losing our country. So I asked folks, pray for our country. Let's not lose our country. Too many people have fought and died for our country. I have an uncle who never came back from Europe, too old to go, went to fight, ended up dying in the hedgerow shortly after D-Day. There's tens of thousands of these people out there that fought and died for everything we got. Please don't let them die in vain. Let's take our country back. This is the first step. It's not the last step. It's the first step. Presidential, congressional, U.S. Senate, state House, state Senate, county commission, school boards. Let's take our country back.
Comptrollers.
Yeah.
Everything.
Ombudsman. Whatever you need. All right. Thanks for hanging out. It's been a blast. Libby, what's up?
What's up? So you can check out everything we're doing at thepostmillennial.com and humanevents.com. You can follow me on X at Libby Emmons, and I have a new thing, which is sort of exciting. We just started doing a newsletter from me. It's a daily, during the week, not on the weekend, newsletter, and you can sign up for it at thepostmillennial.com/Libby. I write in it every day, so I'm just like sending out what I think is interesting and stories and things like that, from my perspective. So you could sign up. It's growing pretty fast, as apparently I have been told. So
Well, people really like you. So that's good.
That's bizarre, but you can sign up for the newsletter anyway. And I'm a member of Timcast. I don't know if anybody knows that, but you should all be members.
I mean, it really helps us out. I like it a lot. So yeah, it's been great having you here, Libby. Tim's 1 and 2. It's been great being able to talk to both of you. Is there anywhere people can find you? Are you on
X at Tim Burchett.
Nice. Okay.
That's my cool one, and I've got the official account And that's not my ex at Tim Burchett's not so official, but I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all the other things.
Very cool. People can see your skateboards, maybe.
Yep.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimmel. I'm a writer for scnr.com. Scanner News. Follow all of our work at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Twitter X, Hannah Claire B, and I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b. Thank you guys for everything you do, and I hope you have a great night.
All right, everybody. We will see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.